fundamentally, at the core of everything I believe is failure is more important than success. There's a lot more learnings from failure, a lot more.
So you are in the US, out of school, making good money. We have Airbnb running businesses, having these consultancy roles with these big firms. Why did you decide to come here?
There's a lot more problems to solve on the continent than in America. Sometimes people confuse the idea of entrepreneurship versus starting a business. And for me, that's where the distinction comes up. Entrepreneurship usually has to do with grander vision. It happens to do with being prepared to fail and having no idea when you're going to really raise money. And I think a lot of people on the continent, for the most part, are looking to start a business, something that is going to return money immediately.
People who build long-lasting, impactful businesses tend to focus on just one business.
Yes.
So take Sam Walton or John D. Rockefeller or Carnegie or what's it called, Bill Gates. One business. 100%.
Yes.
But then they were building multiple businesses. What's your thought? How would you touch on that?
That's partly stupidity.
Hello, community. Thanks for showing up. Over the period, we are gradually feeling the warmth of how amazing the community you guys are. A testament of that is that I think a couple of weeks ago, someone in our community who's been following our podcast, reached out and mentioned that they're running this fashion outlet called Etna Concilio, and that he'd seen my style of dressing and he wanted to, do something bespoke. And I think, here we have it. Another one is, what's it called? The hat I'm wearing. It was a gift from another person in our community who sent it my way because he's realized that Professor Samwadako realized that I like wearing hats for this podcast and sent this as a gift. And so, you guys are truly an amazing community. Thanks for all the feedback. Thanks for supporting what we do. As well, the conversation you're about to listen to is a conversation I had with Ed Cyprian. A very unique conversation. Cyprian is the managing director, founder for Arian Holdings. It's a holding company that holds has holdings subsidiaries from agri to tech. He has a very unique story. At the end of the episode, at the end of the conversation, it felt really therapeutic for me personally. And I really hope you do enjoy the conversation. So, enjoy the conversation. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Ed
It's a
Cyprian.
pleasure. And I go by Cyprian. You can call me Ed. Ed is just there for filling out forms.
Oh, okay. Why?
It's the shortest possible name I can have. But I wasn't born with Ed.
Yeah, I heard the name has changed like a couple of times.
Yeah.
From what was it? Cyprian was your first name?
Cyprian was my first
And
name.
give me a middle name.
Exactly.
Your last name.
Very interesting where you heard that from. But yes, that is 100% true.
I think your surname was Mawinya or something like that.
No, when you're new. Initially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but why that? Why did you change your names? Did he speak to something?
No real reason. Just growing up as a kid that just had a creative imagination and parents that allowed it.
That's interesting.
But Cyprian was always my favorite name. So as I was getting older, I figured it would make sense to have it as my last name since I'll be probably referred to Mr. Cyprian.
Yeah, sounds cool.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
But I think in between, the Ed came from Edward.
Oh, okay.
My mom encouraged me to have Edward because she was fascinated with the royal family. So my little brother is called Andrew.
Okay. So now you have a sister, Margaret. Margaret is your mother.
Margaret is my mom.
Oh.
Yeah.
But you have a sister?
No, I don't. Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, recently I saw this post from you. I think someone had done a master's and a PhD.
That's my mom.
That's your mom? Oh.
When my mom was doing her master's in 94,
Okay.
In Ukraine, she had me. I was about 4 years old. That's what she was saying. And then now she's done with her doctorate about 30 years later, and she had her granddaughter, which is my child, next to her. So it was just like a moment that she was talking about.
Wow. Talking about Ukraine, I know you're born in Ukraine, then USSR.
Then USSR,
Before Gorbachev gave in. Okay, and then you moved to Ghana at 5. And then from there, I gather you went
You
to
have
the
a
US.
lot of information. I don't even know why we need. I don't even know why we need to have a conversation.
I'm just trying to understand. So you came to Ghana and you moved to the US, right? So I'm just
Yes.
trying to understand, how's growing up like?
Do
Do you have any memory of like your time in the USSR and then coming to Ghana?
Very limited memory, and at this point in time, it's difficult to tell if the memory that I have is from my mom. Took a lot of content back then. She was like a content creator for that family.
Okay.
So there was a lot of what do they call those, VHS tapes. So I have a lot of memories playing in my head, but I'm not sure if I watched it on TV.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I know where we lived. I know what it looked like. I remember me walking in snow, heavy snow. And fortunately as well, when my parents were there, they were there with, I mean, at the time it was heavily Ghanaians were, the Ghanaian government was offering a lot of scholarships to the USSR. So there were a lot of other Ghanaian students as well studying. So a few of them that also had children as well. Funny enough, I'm still very good friends close enough to those families today. So my memory from childhood stems with those relationships because our parents were still friends.
Were both parents in school at the time?
Yes, they were both in school at the time.
Are they academics?
No. My dad at some point in time was a lecturer as well, but they're not academics first.
Okay. Siblings?
One little brother.
One brother. Oh, okay, cool. So you moved to Ghana?
Yes. With my mom.
Your mom?
Yeah.
Okay.
When she was done with her undergraduate and master's, he was still studying further in Russia or Ukraine. I'm not sure at the time. Yeah.
It sounds like parents are really enthused about education.
Or had an opportunity presented to them because education on a scholarship and coming from where they came from, I think it's very important.
Okay, so you came to Ghana when you were what,
5, roughly.
Right. And then you left at 15.
Roughly. You have the very specifics.
Oh.
Yes, roughly 14, 15. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you essentially don't have a ton of your upbringing happened in like various places outside Ghana, right?
So you can argue that my teenage years or my adolescence years was mostly in the US.
The US, okay.
My adult life, funny enough, has been between the US and Ghana.
Okay.
And just travel in general. And then obviously the toddler years in Ukraine. Yeah. But it's fairly straightforward, I think.
I'm asking these because I just trying to understand having parents, I mean, moving about and from the Soviet Union to Ghana to the US, and the man you have become now, right? Are there certain things that you think you have imbibed by virtue of that kind of exposure or like your perspective on the world, you know?
That's a good question. I think certainly one word, we are who we are because of what we're nurtured by and who we're nurtured by. And obviously if my parents' experiences also help shape their worldviews, it definitely has an impact on me. Yeah. Like for instance, my mom and my mom traveled really for university, so she was the last in her family, so she was fairly young and she went to a foreign country, and then not only was she in a foreign country, she had a baby in a foreign country and still continued her undergraduate, finished and did her master's as well. Yeah. There's a lot in that, and also even migrating to a foreign country again, the US, that whole my parents to some extent have shown me that it's okay to start afresh, or it's okay to start, or it's okay to go through even when it's challenging or difficult. So in general, when I'm going through something that's, or when I want to start something, there's not a lot of resistance. Yeah. Like even coming back home, typically is like you're in the US.
And that explains a lot because as an entrepreneur, I think you really are the post child for what it means to be a serial entrepreneur.
Mm.
You have this, you're the managing director for Ayyrian Group, a holding company with like an extensive network of businesses. And
Correct.
we're going to come to that. CAAD.
CAD and CAD. Yeah. Civil consultancy.
Civil consultancy. Even though you have no formal background in civil engineering.
Correct.
Yes,
Correct.
I feel like you have ventured in like new things and started a lot of things, and that explains a lot, you know. So my next question essentially is talking about education. I know you went to school in Texas, but you went to a community college first.
No, I even forgot about that. I wouldn't say I went to a community college first, but yes, I did go to a community college first. But I went to a complete 4-year university in University of Texas. Yes, but when I was in high school, when I moved to the US, I was able to test out of my high school classes. So my counselor at the time advised that instead of going for my high school classes alone, I should start community college classes so I can get some credits and advanced knowledge. Otherwise, the classes were a little more not as helpful for the level I was at the time. So I did community college at the same time while I was in high school. Then that helped catapult me into University of Texas. But and the reason I say I still did a regular 4-year college, because even when I was in University of Texas, because I had that extra credits from community college, I didn't have to rush it. So that also allowed me opportunity to, for instance, explore with businesses, internships.
So you started business
in Texas in university. Actually, arguably, I started business in primary school.
Tell me about that.
Where do we start from? Where did I start? What is business? In primary school, I started my first transactional activity in primary school. The very first in Ghana, I went to Christ again significantly.
Wait, so I'm just a stretch, but you paid chance go to school with Sangu?
I did. He was my senior. He was the talk of the school. One of my favorite teachers, Mr. Oh my God, I can't remember his name right now. It's slipping my head, but he was a class 6 math teacher, Mr. Anane. Used to talk a lot and rave a lot about him. And I think at one point in time, he was in school, I believe Harvard at the time. And he came back to visit briefly, and we were in the class at the time. And he was like, "See, this is what you guys need to be like." So I've always looked up to him. So, yes, yeah. So in terms of the initial question, in class 6, I don't know. This is not a good one, but I used to tinker a lot. I never played video games and stuff like that. I got one video game when I was much younger, and I tore it apart. And I never got a video game again. I took it out for the parts. I used to always like the inner workings of things. So I was always inner workings and always roaming around. I had 3-4 bikes at a time at different times. So I was always riding my bikes and doing things. Anyway, I took out apart a lot of things. And one time we were about to have a test, obviously. And I kind of made this toy car. Obviously just repurposing parts from different toys and stuff like that, and made it out of like a matchbox with wheels and like a motor. It's just very simple things. And essentially what we had is it would roll from one desk to the other on the floor, and you can literally put a question in there or an answer in there. And then I sold that to someone after the first test. Yeah. So that was my first transaction. I'm sorry. But beyond that, in JSS as well, we used a lot of coupons in the school system where you don't have actual physical cash. So you trade those coupons, and your parents give you those coupons so you don't have physical cash. So you can only use those coupons to buy stuff in the canteen. So I started selling out a lot of sweets and candy. I lived in a neighborhood where there's a lot of it was like a lower class neighborhood of sort, or lower middle class neighborhood. So there's a lot of sweets that a lot of people are Christ like close enough, not Kanishi. But at some point in time, I lived in Mataico as well. But there was a lot of sweets and stuff in my community that the people from my school hadn't really been familiar with. So I was able to up this price on it and sell it for like triple the price because it was new to them. It was different. And I was making a lot of money from that. And then I had an idea from a friend and where he was thinking about like starting a bank, and where people save money with him, and
In primary school.
in prime just as one. People, Kafri and media, people would save
Where
money.
is he now? Do you have?
He's an architect now, very renowned architect today.
He's not a banker.
But he's still building on something. But yeah, so that was that, and then I had the excess cash, so I said, okay, I'm gonna go into this banking idea as well. So people needed physical cash. They had coupons, so I buy the coupons for less value and give them the cash, and then I loan people money, and they pay back in coupons and installments. My mom was a banker, so every time she gave me money, this is kind of like how she did it. Sometimes she sends me these notes, whereas like I owe her this, that, and the date is signed, and I signed it. So maybe that's where that concept came from.
Wow.
Eventually, I got in trouble for that.
How did you get in trouble in school?
Yeah, I mean, we were not supposed to have cash.
Yeah.
I always had like, I don't remember the equivalent, but a millions Ghana cedis at the time, or whatever it is. Any given day, that's how much money I was making. And the assistant headmistress kind of heard about it. And so I got in trouble for that.
Wow.
But yeah, those would be my first.
Yeah. And experience like that will not. It explains a lot, honestly.
It does?
I mean, the kind of man you are now. Okay, so you're in Texas, community college. After that, University of Texas. You started a business there. Did you try building business when you were in high school in the US?
That's a good question. When I was in high school in the US, no.
Okay, then university.
Yes.
You studied computer science, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the business part. What happened?
How did the business part? I think I stumbled upon getting back into business because leaving JSS, going to secondary school, I went to Akosmo briefly, Akosmo International. That was enough to like stop the money lending business, because now I'm a SS1 boy, where if I'm lending money, I'm not getting it back. So that was enough to like kill that business. So since then, I didn't really, but in university, I don't know what exactly led to the first, but I know what it was. Okay. I was already by junior year, I had done 2 internships at the time. Okay. So I was already getting a lot of like development experience. And what led me to internships is a whole different story. But at some point in time, the program that took me to university, which is Academic Bridge Program, which kind of helps people in the minority get into university and stuff like that. There was a dean, or there was a teacher or as well, that wanted to build out a program for the department, which was going to help manage the library's books, because they issue out books to different people in the program, and they need to kind of track that out. So I said I could do it, and I started working on it for free. So that kind of catapulted me to my first SaaS solution of sorts. Yeah. So built it out. The dean loved it. It was never actually implemented, but it was built out fully. And as a result of that, I got introduced through someone else in the Bridge program to my first real client in the oil and gas space. And then that's where I started catapulting, building custom solutions for different people.
Okay. So many questions.
Sorry.
So many questions.
I don't know if I have too many answers though.
Yeah. First off, why did you decide to do computer science, study computer science? What was your interest?
It was a cop out. What I really wanted to do was robotics. Like I said, I always tinkered with stuff. I always took things apart. I always wanted to build. But I also got introduced to money fairly early on. I'd seen money to some extent as a young guy, and I knew that the capital it takes to set up your own business from a manufacturing or robotics or engineering perspective was a lot more. So when I got introduced to computer science early on, I had a cousin called Eugene that was like coding away, and a clock came up, and I'm like, okay, that's very interesting. I chose computer science at that time purely because it was the quickest way, after my small research, for me to be able to generate revenue to do grander things.
Nice. So it's like you were like steep in your mindset that you're going to be a businessman, like be a builder, so to speak,
Yes.
and make money.
Yes. And
Okay.
and this happened around JSS.
Okay.
I think around it became solidified around JSS2, JSS3,
Okay.
when my mom had me go work over the summer at Combat Impression, which was then owned by Albert Okran and Comfort. I presume it's still the case. And I was just there literally binding books every single day in this small, it was when they were very small, back in their home, in this small kiosk with the other ladies binding books and everything. And a couple of times he'd bring me his own book he's written to read. And then I read those 2 books. And then there was a 3rd book, I don't remember who gave it to me, either my mom or him, Rich Dad Poor Dad, which is a lot of people's entry into
Kiyosaki.
thinking like that.
Yeah.
So at that point in time, I started doing 5-year plans. Or 10-year plans. So
How old were you at the time?
just 14, 13.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it is there.
So University of Texas, you built this solution for your dean,
Mm-hmm.
and did you say it was never implemented?
It wasn't particularly implemented,
Okay.
but it was me executing my first software product
Okay.
all the way through. It was, we demoed it, we tested it, we had scanners to read the barcode, everything. It just
So
was
from
never
there, you said
fully.
you had like referral to a client to build a custom
Yes.
software solution.
Yes.
So did you make a business out of that? What was that
Yeah,
called?
that became my first paying business
Okay, what was
from
that
a software. That's the same business today that has transitioned to Ssessa.
Oh, okay.
It was initially called Bendops.
Bendops. Okay.
Yes.
Because there's a story I gathered that
Mhm.
you came to Ghana for holidays,
Mhm.
and then you had like a request by clients to build something,
Mhm.
but then given the budget and the timeline,
Mhm.
you couldn't reach out to your team in the US or something like that, and then you had to recruit new developers here to build that.
Mhm. Yes.
Is that right?
Partly.
Okay.
So initially, when I was building out this project, I had good friends, and some of them were from Nepal as well. And so we started building this technology together, right?
Building
And
like this
the
software
initial,
solutions enterprise.
yes, we're
Okay.
building it together for the initial client.
Okay.
And that kind of, because remember, I'm still very, at this point in time, relatively green to building complex enterprise applications. I'm still like junior, sophomore, like 2nd, 3rd year in university. So relatively green to what it takes to build a proper,
Yeah.
complete application with all the bugs and security bells and whistles in. So, but I had people on my team that were doing their PhD.
How did you recruit them?
I was friends with
Okay.
people, and it's like, this is extra money, let's work on this together. Because when you're in America as well, that's the other thing, you're not able to work a certain number of hours beyond 19 hours
Okay.
because you're on a student visa, so you're capped at how many hours you can work.
Okay.
So this was like extra money that he can make under the table, more or less, without
Okay.
raising any flag. So that's what kind of introduced me to that. And when we needed to expand, we started thinking about outsourcing. That's when I got introduced to the concept of outsourcing and knowing that, okay, you can kind of work off of the arbitrage of salaries. At some point in time, we had more projects and stuff. And in Ghana, in one of my visits, trying to do other things, I was able to put together a team, and that worked out. And I was like, okay, honestly, there's no particular reason that at all our outsourcing in the US at the time, was my thinking,
Okay.
goes predominantly to Asia. Why doesn't it come here?
Yeah.
And then I also did spend some time in India, Hyderabad as well, leading a team for GSK from an outsourcing perspective as well. So that also exposed me to, it's not any different than we have in Africa, because the same challenges I had there are the same ones I have here.
That brings me to the question about, I know you started like a remote staffing business called Bandwidth.
Yes.
We'll come to that. So on your LinkedIn, like a simple view of your LinkedIn,
You wouldn't find anything accurate, but I'm listening.
Yeah, the timelines are very funny. When I saw like, the person's still working on this. Why is this ended? You know?
Okay.
But anyway,
I don't like
sound like a stalker.
attention.
Okay, so on your LinkedIn, with your experiences, like you work with a lot of organizations, and I was wondering, did you work as like an employee? There's even JP Morgan in there. There's
that's like 10, 12 years ago, yeah.
Via Tech, there's Sensio Health, PSCU. Did you work with them as an intern, like an employee of sorts?
In different times, as a
school?
Contractor. Yeah. These are after school. So a bulk of my professional experience is working as a software developer or a technical lead.
Okay.
And I've been out of school almost 15 plus years now. So a bulk of my experience has been that. At the same time, I've always been developing different ideas and projects. Right now, a bulk of my focus is on Ayyrian Group.
Okay. So you were working with these people and you're also building your own thing?
At different times, yes. Like JP Morgan, for instance, was around 2012, 2013. At that time, I wasn't actively building several different businesses, but I was always doing business on the side. I had car rentals, I had Airbnbs. I mean, we've been in different places at different times.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Tell me about CAAD, because from the timelines I gather, it was the first. I mean, I've mentioned that.
Oh, okay.
Ben, what's it called? The software company?
Bendops. Yes.
Bendops. From now, what you said, Bendops came before CAAD?
Okay, so a little more clarity on CAD and CAD. CAD and CAD is a business that was started by my dad. And so my involvement in that is me coming into, quote unquote, what is eventually transitioning into a family business from that perspective. So its tenure is 30 plus years.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, because even on your website, like 30 plus years of like civil engineering.
So it's over the experience of the people that have worked across the organization.
To make it more tech forward, tech driven, or
tech forward, optimized, and also, but there's a lot of conversation going on under the table, not under the table, but in the background, as we're still aligning what the next 10, 15 years look like for us, but shifting a little bit of focus as well from not just civil consultancy.
Okay, but now I'm interested in why you decided to return to Ghana and stay, because I think you have a primary base in Ghana, more or less now.
I do have a primary base in Ghana, yeah.
So you are in the US, out of school, making good money. We have Airbnb running businesses, having these consultancy roles with these big firms. Why did you decide to come here and more or less like pitch your tent here?
Yeah.
What drove you here?
The honest answer, I don't fully know. It's the same feeling initially when, here's the thing. You've probably spoken to a lot of people that have left the country. They would do anything to be back. Most of the times they can't come back for financial reasons. It's not practical, or the systems just frustrate them too much. But given the right circumstances, a lot of people would love to be back home. So that underlining factor is there for everyone. Yes, people are going out there for greener pastures, but if the tables were turned, and it happens a lot. I actually, speaking to a lot of people when I was initially my mom wanted me to be a dentist, so I ended up interning at the dentist's office. I started off with chemistry before I switched to computer science. And talking to the dentist, who was also Ghanaian, I realized he, at some point in time, also wanted to migrate back home after he's lived his life. And a lot of Ghanaian families wanted to retire back in Ghana. Why would you want to live so happily in a place and eventually want to retire back somewhere else? That is, if that's the end goal. And what I realized is a lot of people failed when they try to do it in their 40s and their 50s, because the systems now just don't make sense to them.
Yeah.
That was my initial driver. Okay. I was like, okay, I'm going to want to be in Ghana eventually. Why not start now? Wow. And then obviously once I came down, it gave me a little more purpose. It gave me a bigger, because I like to tinker. I like to solve problems. There's a lot more problems to solve on the continent than in America. There's a lot more money to be made in America today. Yeah. But see, if you have a visionary mindset, it's not about how much money you can make today. It's about what is the capital influence you can build over time.
Now that you talk about, you mentioned visionary, I was gonna ask it anyway, but then on your bios, on your socials, you describe yourself as what's it called? Unconventional disruptor and something visionary. I don't even remember the word. Why do you call yourself an unconventional disruptor then? Hello friends. So sorry to interrupt you. I know you're enjoying this conversation and I'm so sorry about rudely interrupting you. But then it's come to our attention that about 82% of you guys who consume our content have not subscribed. Your subscription goes a long way to help us and encourages us as a team to keep bringing you what we bring you every week. So just do us a little favor. Hit the subscribe button, share, and if possible, comment. Thank you.
Honestly, it's in the way I approach problems and solutions. Fundamentally, at the core of everything I believe is failure is more important than success. There's a lot more learnings from failure, a lot more. I mean, even something as simple as watching my daughter learn how to walk. She falls multiple times. And if I stop her from falling and lock her up in a seat, she's never going to learn how to walk. It seems like an extreme, but it happens with swimming, as an example. If you never teach your child how to swim, when they look like they're going to drown or they're drinking too much water, they're never going to learn how to swim. And so that failure of like trying leads to success. And one mantra from a trip I took not too long ago was the journey is the destination. So
Mamba mentality.
Where we are, the destination, the failures, the shortfalls, all of those things matter a lot more. My learnings are a lot more from the failed businesses, and that's what made me have more successful businesses. But as a result of that, when I'm trying to disrupt, I'm looking for people that are willing to fail or are open to fail. And sometimes people confuse the idea of entrepreneurship versus starting a business. And for me, that's where the distinction comes up. Entrepreneurship usually has to do with grander vision. It happens to do with being prepared to fail and having no idea when you're going to really raise money. And I think a lot of people on the continent, for the most part, are looking to start a business, something that is going to return money immediately. And which is fine. Depending on your circumstances, you need money immediately. But when you want grander visions, you have to be prepared to lose a little bit of money. Even like what Dangote is doing with the refinery. He recently, or not recently, he said it at some point in time. It would have been smarter for him to invest his money somewhere else and make so much more. But what he's doing, that's grander vision right now. He's not going to reap the same reward for himself personally, maybe for the generations to come. And I think that's the distinction. We need to have an environment where we foster a lot of visionary thinking. And with that, failure is more important than the success stories. We need to know what that doesn't work. That builds more character.
Would you describe Kwame Nkrumah as an entrepreneur?
That's a good question. On the surface, yes, there's a lot of similar qualities, but he was running a government. But had broad vision. He was a visionary for sure, but I wouldn't say an entrepreneur because when you're running a government, it's not purely about the gains and the financial impact down the line and the solutions you're solving. It's also about the greater good as well. And sometimes you have to consider the greater good, not just in terms of long scenarios, but also in the meantime. So it's a balancing factor of all of those things. That's why there's a lot of
visionary.
That's why there's a lot of conversation around socialists, capitalists, different models, because you're balancing more than just your personal vision, but what works for the entire nation.
That's a lot to think about. And the idea that most people are just looking to start businesses, which typically, from our part of those, stems out of
necessity
and necessity, and so. But then we always say this on this podcast that we believe entrepreneurs will build this continent, right? And I mean, as has been like the tale for most developed economies now. People who see the problems and tackle them and are ready to wrestle with them for a lifetime, and also considering that, well, they can make some economic impact doing that. So, so now let's get to. Okay, go on. Yes, let's do.
Entrepreneurs will build this continent.
Yes.
But not exclusively.
Oh, sure, for sure.
And even if exclusively, it would take so much time.
Yeah.
Ideally, the people will build this continent. So ideally, what we want to do, and it's a lot of how we kind of like focus our energy as well at Ayyrian Group, is we want to have a way of impacting a lot more minds. So through even something like Bandwidth Global, we want to reach out to a lot more youth and impact them a lot more, because how they think, that mindset eventually is what is going to trickle down to the change in the government, to the change in the way we run things. Like right now in Ghana, everyone is very okay with paying a bribe to a police officer here and there, right? But there's a few things that have changed from maybe when I grew up, where there was a lot of broadcasting of send your girl child to school. That was a mindset where people truly were not sending girls to school, right? But it took a general campaign to affect a change like that.
Yeah.
And so people with capital resource eventually have to tackle a social issue that changes the mindset overall. That's probably what's going to drive change.
And I use the word entrepreneurs on the same definition you've given it in this conversation.
Okay.
That's a mindset.
Okay.
More as opposed to someone who just wants to start a business.
Okay.
You know, so like, so literally, the entrepreneurially minded people will build this
Got you.
continent here. But like, with a new vision in mind and
Long-term
conducting
play.
ourselves to, yes. So Arian Holdings. Why the name Arian? When I saw the name, I was like,
it sounds close to something.
yeah,
No,
right.
Arian. So Arian more so.
What's the
That
name?
clarity honestly was formed from Cyprian and my wife's last name, Ayyrian.
You know what? When I was doing my guess, I feel I could show you. I said it's either from like the Coptic noble and like maybe because your wife is Ayyrian and then you are Cyprian. I'm like, that could work. But then it's also like a variation of like the word Arian, like Arian. Yeah.
It's a lot of things. So my wife is a branding and communications person, right? So that there was a full conversation had on selecting this name, right? And all of those things came into play. But it was also embracing and taking back the power and something that resembles something like that, and redefining it. But honestly, fundamentally, it's the joining of two families. It's an AY and the beautiful Spanish language Y, which is like an end, and then Rien. So it's like the joining of two families, essentially. But yeah.
Okay, so under the Ayyrian Holdings, there are a fleet of companies from Agric to Tech. There's Anansi Collective, there's Ssessa, there's which has like a host of solutions. I know we're going to discuss that hopefully. There's Mark Farms, there's Domedo, there's Bandwidth. It's okay. I'm sure I have not exhausted the list yet.
I don't know if I can help you exhaust it.
Yes, I think let's touch on like a few of them. Let's start with Ssessa, of course, because you started BEMDOS when you were in school, and that has become Ssessa.
Correct.
Before that would be the first that we tackle. What informed your decision to set up this holding company with your wife and to go on to build these businesses or acquire these businesses?
Okay. So we're both visionaries in general, but more so than anything, Amma is a creative and she has a lot of ideas, and I'm very operational and more of an executor. So I tend to, like I said, encourage a lot of good and bad ideas, and we see if it fails and if it succeeds. So by us virtually coming together, there was just one too many things that want to do. So it just made sense to kind of start putting that in a formal structure and figuring out a longer game plan of how we can achieve all of this. Otherwise, it just becomes a chaotic mess. So it looks a lot, but it's fairly organized.
Okay. All right. So the Anansi Collective. Tell us. We said we're going to talk about Ssessa first. So talk to us about Ssessa.
Ssessa really, at the end of the day, is trying to make transformational technology.
Okay.
Its motto is essentially code, create, change. So at the end of the day, we are building technologies that solve solutions here on the continent, but not exclusively to here on the continent. We're solving solutions globally, but because of where we exist on the continent and the concept of the understanding we have of how our landscape is so diverse, as we're solving solutions, we're building solutions, we're able to build solutions that work very well for the world in general.
Okay.
So the mantra in that is always thinking about the differences within our continent, for instance. So it's as simple as always making things configurable or leveraging AI technologies in places that the West doesn't have problems just because their landscape is different and stuff like that. So
because I know you have Zobo 360, it's like a restaurant management software.
Yes.
The store sync, warehouse inventory, any gym. Yeah. And there's what's it called? Vele. How do you pronounce that?
Vele.
Okay. EHS software.
It's even evolved beyond an EHS software.
What's it now?
It's more of an ERP that still supports a lot of high risk sectors.
Like
by high risk, mining, manufacturing, aviation, oil and gas.
So you have clients in all those areas?
Not in all of these areas, but in some of these areas, mining, oil and gas, manufacturing. Yeah.
Oh, it's exciting.
But it solves a bigger problem from project management to health and safety, tracking incidents, good and bad observations, doing inspections, ISO compliances, tracking regulations, and a variety of things from that perspective. And inventory management.
Doing something like this in Ghana, you would really be frequenting the Western region a lot. Is that the case?
For oil and gas and that sector.
Too.
But again, we're not only focused in Ghana.
Oh, okay.
And we build a solution well enough that we've dealt with some foreign entities outside of the continent as well.
Okay.
So yes, sure, frequent the Western region, but frequent, South Africa, frequent different places as well. Yeah.
Because on your Instagram, like I see like a lot of you visit a lot of places you're in the Arab world for a period. And, interesting. Mac Farms.
Mac Farms. What about it? Oh, what is Mac Farms? Mac Farms has, like you mentioned, Domedo, which is a pork-based ghost kitchen.
You know, the Domedo is banned.
Really? No, that's the tech lead, Trophy.
Oh, sorry.
But is this the place you want to like call me out?
Don't worry, it's very quiet. I got you.
That's fine. No, it's not. But I know Trophy is banned very well because I got sick when I was in the 90s from eating Trophy every single day. Every single day, I got really sick. But I still find my way to it sometimes.
It's a delicacy. I think the government has to revisit that conversation.
No, they should keep it banned. It's actually quite unhealthy because of the oil in it.
Yeah, I know, but it's so good. The first time I tried it was actually last year.
Really?
Yes, we were going to talk.
Okay, maybe that's why.
Yeah, it was so good. Jesus Christ. Yeah. In the Volta region.
Oh.
When you cross the border, there are these women who... Charlie, it was so good. But anyway.
I imagine. But yeah, so Domedo stemmed up from... purchasing a farm in Somalia.
Okay.
And it had a few pigs on it and had a few mango. I had quite a number of mango trees and stuff. And I went into like pig farming heavily, scaled it at some point in time to like 500 pigs and stuff like that. And I was just reading into like how to make quality, good pig meat, and how to kind of change the narrative around pig or pork in general. So it became very technical. A lot of the things I do, there's a lot of technical solutions. So I was on the ground on the farm at some point in time every single day for like 8 months. So I'll drive into Somalia 2 hours roughly, and then we'll be there the whole day figuring out, okay, this is how much feed we're given. This is how much weight is gaining. We bought an industrial scale. We're weighing them every single day. I was looking at the numbers. We have like a whole data sheet and then everything. And we kind of figured out, okay, we're producing quality meat. We experimented with different breeds of pigs and stuff like that. and the market was not ready to purchase at the price for the quality we're producing. So then I said, why not just go up the vertical and start a ghost kitchen that I supply my own pigs to, and then charge on the premium on the.
That's interesting. Do you have a food outlet for that? What's it called?
Domido.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but they're temporarily on hold for the last 2 months, relocating. But even though it's a ghost kitchen, we still need a bigger space now because we're expanding to a few more ghost kitchens.
You have plans like a franchising that?
Have I thought about franchising it?
Yeah, like
once we
multiple outlets.
Yes, I think. But the issue to get to that point is once we've popularized it enough, and we spent enough on marketing where it's well known, it makes it easier for people to come in because again, when you're coming into a franchise, you're hoping to get a business, not to be an entrepreneur and figure it out. So once we've had that fully figured out, then we can invite people into that space. But right now, the way we've thought of franchising is more so partnering. So if we want to expand the ghost kitchen, we partner with people and then give them a certain share of the revenue, but we still kind of control heavily a lot of what goes in, just so that we can have a broader range of area that we can cover for now.
Okay. And bandwidth?
Bandwidth Global?
Yes.
Very core.
Carl?
Yeah, Carl Cranton. Yeah, okay. So he's the CEO of Bandwidth Global, but we're both co-founders for it. The vision is fairly simple. We've been exporting resources out of Africa for a long time, from natural resources, from gold to diamonds or whatever you call it, oil, to human resources with the brain drain. People are leaving the continent and stuff like that. And obviously there's been a transformation in one sector where people are now starting to realize that we need to produce products and export the products. There's more to be made there. And in different capacities, we also need to export services.
Okay.
And that's where human beings come in. Why don't we have more people on the continent that are able to provide quality service to the rest of the world? And such that they don't have to leave the continent anymore because they're also being compensated fairly and better. That if, again, back to the initial thing, if anyone could stay on the continent, they likely will.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's kind of what led to Bandwidth Global.
So is there some training you guys provide outside of just providing the pipelines to clients or something? Is there training? Is that the whole process?
So so the broader vision for Bandwidth Global is really to kind of enable or fix this unemployment issue in the youth across the continent, and doing that through our community by networks and partnerships with other organizations that are training, other organizations that are recruiting, other organizations that are offering different forms of services that can impact the youth, right? So we internally also have training, but this is a continental problem, and to do it at scale, we can't do it on our own. So our broader strategy is figuring how we can use mentors, institutions, nonprofits, and different things collectively to kind of achieve this. We work with institutions like, we're in talks with institutions like Accra, but we've also worked with institutions previously like Generation. We actively working with institutions. It's falling off my head because again, I'm involved in several different things, but we work with several institutions that offer us Asante partners as well as another institution we work with.
The universities directly.
Say it again.
The universities, like say Ssessa.
Yes, so the partnership breeds from institutions to universities. So we have a direct relationship with Ssessa. We recruit actively. We take interns from Ssessa. We're at even Academic City. We work directly with them. We also have like direct relationship with individuals that want to advocate a little bit of their time towards mentorship. So we kind of pair them up with some of our resources. And we're also building a platform to kind of help manage all of this on a grander level. So the picture is not just, initially, it's about generating the revenue and providing the job opportunity, but the grander picture is impacting the youth across the continent from a perspective.
You were a very quiet person.
Yes, sometimes, mostly,
Yes.
at least publicly.
So it's actually interesting. I was wondering, how were you able to sell? Because
So, Carl actually has been repeating this to me a lot more recently,
yeah,
that I'm a very good salesperson.
yeah,
But I've been shunning the idea that I'm a very good salesperson. But previously, I've always been able to sell. I think.
because with your you're a developer training, and like your background has been like building tech solutions. So just typical stereotype that the coders are the shy ones and they will typically not sell. But you are here selling, like you, not even in this conversation at the moment, but then you build these businesses that require that you sell, and then you seem to be thriving and doing so well, right? And here, I think you've sold yourself so well to me as a person, right? That okay, this person is an entrepreneur. They seem to know what they're about. You're communicating so well, and that's not the narrative around developers and people who are heavy tech centered and stuff like that. And naturally, you seem like a reserved person, from what I've gathered. So I'm just wondering, how have you been able to tell?
I like that you said naturally.
Yeah.
I seem like a reserved person. I think that's more so a nurturing than anything else.
Okay.
Sorry, and I'll expand on that I think being able to be an outgoing social person can be trained. I don't think habits are always just innate that we're born with. And to some extent they are. But you can learn different behaviors. You can learn bad behaviors, so you can definitely learn good habits and behaviors. What I have always been open to is watching other people operate and trying to imitate where I find value.
Yeah.
So I can channel different energies for different rooms whenever I need to, but it's not always natural. But I'm okay in the unnatural because I understand learning anything is going to require a bit of repetition to get there.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'm able to sell well, sometimes I'm not, but I just take learnings from it and move on to the next one. And when you say as a developer, I wouldn't say I'm a developer. I'd say my initial introduction to even going to computer science was about money.
That's true.
So I just learned the idea of logic and coding very well and expanded on top of it. So that's actually what made me succeed in corporate America. Every time I came into like an interview or in the room, I presented them more than just someone that is going to code, someone that could also have conversations with stakeholders.
Yeah.
And that's always a balance that someone is looking for.
With these, with the holding company you're building, all these multiple businesses and lots of things to deal with, how are you keeping? How do you keep oversight? Over this, the expanse of, I see, an empire. How do you keep oversight? Especially in our part of the world where there's
you have to be.
Yeah, you have to be on the people. Running a farm. I mean, I've had my own spell with running a farm business before, this corn plantation, and God.
Yeah.
So
even God couldn't have the oversight for you.
So, how are you maintaining that level of oversight in your affairs?
That's a good question. I've tried different things in different times. Some have worked, some haven't worked. I've had a lot of failed ventures. I've had some amount of good successful ventures, but the learnings from them is what kind of helped. Right, at some point in time, right now where I am actually is I like to get into businesses where there's somebody else that also has a stake in it.
Okay.
And is not looking at it as something for near-term gains, but has the ability to go the long haul with me and has a general understanding of what approaching that vision looks like, so that we can take those broader, grander visions and stuff like that. But overall, when I have people just managing across different businesses, I instill a lot of ownership. That's one of I have 5 core principles, and that's key at the top of it, ownership. And what that allows for is room for them to make mistakes. Especially when there's a fire and I know I need to get involved, sometimes I intentionally let them handle it the best they can. And then we get on a call after and we figure out what went wrong, what did you learn, what could we do differently, and we kind of move from that. A lot of people that do have to be involved in every day-to-day activity of their business do not allow for the trust to be built with the people that report to them. And so, and for that, unfortunately, they're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Because not everyone is thinking like you, or they're going to do things differently from you. You have to be very comfortable with that, the idea that this person is going to give it the best. It may not be at your 100%, but it might be 70, 80%. But allowing room for people to try and experiment. One thing I also like is, if I'm in a call with anyone that reports directly to me, I need you to engage. And if I say something particularly and it's going to end up being a bad idea, I need you to be able to call it out. And if it comes back later and it's a bad idea, you're all at fault. So I make us responsible for everybody. And when somebody shuts me down, even if it comes across a little harsh or disrespectful, I take it in.
Yeah.
I let it happen because I want to build that confidence. And especially in Ghana, where timidness is an issue.
Timidness is healed as humility. That's a problem.
Yes.
The problem we have here.
That's why I say fundamentally we need to have some sort of greater campaign
shift
to change that. Yeah, but that's how I get people. And outside of that, I'm a very process person.
Yeah. Okay.
So
when the system is established,
the systems are established.
Let's maintain
even like, for instance, something like the farm. I had cameras. I had timetables. I had routines, check-in. If you're not reporting by this time, somebody needs to call you and figure out what's going on and something that affects your salary. I'm not afraid to affect somebody's salary. Little things like that. I had systems in place that kind of made us accountable to each other. If I was supposed to show up at a certain time and I didn't show up, you can call me out.
Yeah.
I should apologize. I should fix it next time. The things like that.
I was about 8 minutes late this morning.
We were 8 minutes. I didn't check the time.
Yeah. So talking about,
I was an hour early.
When you called me, I was like, wow.
I've just played.
Yeah, anyway, talking about your venturing and your curious mind and your mind that seems to be drawn to challenge and adventures, have you had any spill in music?
Interesting.
With DJ Yams.
Kinda, but even beyond. Look, if I shut down my brain today, I would be doing music or creative stuff. It may not be as creative to most people, but I'll be wanting to be involved with creativity and hospitality. I think for me, when I'm considered retired, I want to be in hospitality space or creating these atmospheres where people feel good. And music is one of those atmospheres where people feel good. So I have a lot of ideas in my head musically that I've played with, but I've also executive produced or worked with a lot of different tunes and stuff like that.
Interesting.
Yeah. But it's not anything that I'm building career with. It's just something I just play with.
Retirement plan.
Once everyone is out of the house, once businesses are completely on their own, this is probably what will bring me the most joy. Hospitality and creating spaces for people to enjoy themselves.
Putting a pin in those two elements, I'll come to that. Hopefully I don't forget. It's about your marriage. So remind me when we get there.
Okay.
But I won't forget. It's on that same trajectory of you being very adventure driven was the whole driving from Accra to London. I'm really curious about how that started, how that journey went, and probably how didactic that experience was for you. You know, the things that came out of that experience, you know, to you as a person and the values you buy from that. Because it's a lifetime thing people do. You know?
You don't think I've lived a lifetime? Or I don't deserve it? I should wait till I'm 60.
So, no, that's I'm saying, like, it's like an adventure of a lifetime, so
Okay.
to speak. Yeah. So, how did that start?
So first and foremost, I love driving. I like adventure. I've driven in well over 50 countries. I would drive before I would fly. The longest straight journey I've done is 24 hours, with stops for gas and peeing. But I've always loved to drive. I think at some point in time, my wife and I drove in a snowstorm for 16 hours. And so driving has always been at the core of what I wanted to do. Somewhere 2016 thereabout, I had a friend, and we had discussed potentially doing a drive from Europe into Ghana. There was a few people that had done something like that into Ghana, and so we had toyed with it. Obviously, life comes your way. People get married. People have children. People get smarter. So that never really happened. But I was just there one day, and a good friend who also happens to be my in-law, my wife's brother, said, "Hey, there's this thing going on that his brother is mentioning, that the group of guys, because most of the people on the team were all of the people exception of one were significantly older than me, in the 50s for the most part. So they were doing the adventure already. And I'm like, yo, this is something I definitely want
You have to wait till you're 50.
Yeah. This is something I definitely want to be a part of. And it was just because two of my in-laws were in it, so it was a little easier to kind of go with it. So then I definitely wanted to drive. I didn't want to just sit in somebody's car. So I also took my car and then said, we're going to do this journey together. The learnings were a lot. I mean, that alone is its own conversation. The learnings were a lot. But the most important thing that stuck out to me was the one thing that kept being repeated in the group. The journey is the destination. The journey is the destination. And fundamentally, that's the most important thing. I keep talking about failures. I keep talking about the ways to get to the final goal. There's a lot more learnings to that. There's a lot more I learned about our continent or our part of the world or driving in general from doing this, or from being in the same car with two of my in-laws from doing this, right? There's a lot.
Did you tell the girl about your sister?
At that point in time, it was already too late. I'd already married her. At that point in time, I was doing two now. But yeah.
Okay. I see. Before I go, I want to talk about your family.
Sure.
I told you I was going to talk about your family.
Which one?
I told you I was going to talk about your daughter.
Parents? Oh.
I told you before today.
I don't recall.
Via text.
Sure. Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
On social media.
Yes,
yeah. You said you were going to ask about this. Yeah.
Yeah. And so tying into what I said we're going to talk about, you interested in creating the atmosphere for people to have a good time and relax, hospitality and all of that. When did you get married? 2021? 2022?
What year are we in?
25.
It's 3 years ago, roughly.
I'm in a parallel universe. Yeah.
What's 3 years ago, roughly? I can't remember.
2022.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you had this wedding ceremony, of your marriage. And it was very... When I was trying to get into a conversation with you, when I asked someone whether they knew you, that was the first thing they mentioned.
Really?
Well, yeah, this guy's wedding, it was so good. And
Isn't that so sad?
well, and it was so good, it was so well planned and all of that. Person went ahead to mention, some of the things that happened and all of that, right? And so I'm not surprised. Now that you've mentioned that, like, you generally naturally want to people should have a good time,
Yes.
Organize something for people to have a good time
and not be the center of attention. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
See, so did I tie into that? Like,
yes.
You planning your wedding?
Yes.
Because I heard people had to move from Accra to, all. Where did it happen?
The engagement was in Ibri.
Yes.
And then the wedding was in, what's the name of the area in general? Close to Nzilezu.
Nzimaya, yeah.
Atoba, what's about that? Atwabo, yes. Yeah. Okay. I think that's the general name for the area. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, okay, cool. And How is marriage been for you?
Marriage?
Yes. Because I'm asking this because when we were talking, you mentioned that you had this idea with your friend to drive from Europe to Africa, and then you mentioned things that tend to flip things.
Okay.
Right. Marriage is one of them. That people get married, people have kids, and then
I mean, plans happen, things happen.
Yeah, things happen, and there's a certain consensus. Having conversations with people, building things. There's a slight sentiment that, oh well, marriage tends to slow you down a little. Even though it's good and it's great, marriage and children tend to slow you down. They make you see things from a different perspective. What is your take? Saying marriage slows you down is not a bad thing.
Sure. Yeah. Saying marriage slows you down is not a bad thing. But I don't know if it is marriage slows you down or more so it gives you different perspective, different clarity. It's like doing things in a group project. Is it going to slow you down? You can argue, doing things with other people, you can't control all the parameters, but can you get a lot more done? Yeah, probably. Different people have different skills they're bringing in, different strengths. So yes, but if you're working by yourself and you had no one else to communicate, well, you can achieve what you exclusively want to achieve. But when collectively you're working, you have ideas and visions from everyone else that collectively you're able to potentially achieve greater things. Yeah. So I wouldn't argue that marriage slows down. It's just a shift in the way you approach it when there's other people involved. It's no longer just what you want, it's what they want, and also what your shared purpose as well is. So no, I wouldn't argue it slows you down. But what was the initial question? How is marriage for me? Yeah. I mean, it's honestly just like any other marriage. There's good days, there's bad days. Yeah. There's uncomfortable days, there's beautiful days.
Everything else is noise.
I like that.
Do you remember that statement?
I have made, okay, so that's my statement. I was like, I like that. Yeah. I've listened.
Yeah. It was a statement you made about your daughter.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
You seem surprised.
I didn't realize I made it on my daughter,
you
but
did, yeah. Everything else, what does that mean?
What was my daughter doing?
She was just lying on you, I think. It was a picture.
Oh, no. I think I remember what you're saying. Just at the end of the day, family is it. Nothing else really matters. Everything we're striving for, at the end of the day, is all about family.
The two men from Christ the King who have come here have ended up at the same spot. Sangu said, when Sangu was here, he said that when it comes to his daughter, right, nothing else matters. No pursuits, no other pursuits or vision can be a threat to her safety and well-being and his responsibility as a father. And you've also come to this thing too, that in the end, it's family.
I mean, I'll even expand a little further. In the end, it's your community.
Yeah.
The people you hold dearest to you. If you hold your siblings dearest to you, you do anything for them. If without community, if you were to go through this life on your own, you would not really care to achieve anything. You would not care to do good for anyone. You would not care to be better for yourself. At what course? At the end of the day, it's really the people you hold dearly and love.
Talking about people you love, your mom. Over the course of this conversation, I've picked up that she's really being like a great guide. She's the one who pushed you to go do internship at Albert and Comfort Outfits, where you got introduced to Kiyosaki's book. She got you, I mean, even before that, I don't know whether it's after that, she introduced you to sort of banking of sorts, right?
She also threatened to call the police on me. But we'll not do that to her.
Yeah, so how's your relationship with her like?
That's a genuinely a tough one. Today, it's a bit estranged, not because we have a problem that, or at least not anything known, just because I haven't been doing so well from keeping that conversation. But we talk well when we do talk, and things. But it's not as, I mean, growing up, I was called a mommy's boy. So I think it's definitely transformed from what it was growing up to
Your
what
dad?
it is today. How's the relationship with my dad?
Yes.
Growing up, there wasn't, he was always busy, always out for the most part. There was a limited relationship with him as well.
Yeah.
But now, there's a decent relationship. There's a good relationship. I mean, we're both men. There's a lot of questions I have. We work side by side in some instances. So there's a decent relationship. But in general, I have a healthy relationship with both my parents. I can talk to them about anything. And I do talk to them about anything. I just don't often talk to my mom. Also, just maybe because we're in different time zones as well. But I can do better by it is what I'm saying. But not any real problem. Just not as better.
This might probably be my last question or not. Sorry, pardon me if I'm prying too much.
No, absolutely.
Okay.
After that, I pry in yours as well.
No. Okay, so still on family.
Yeah.
Right? So let's imagine 30 years from today,
Yeah.
your daughter is on a podcast and was asked the same question. And she gave the exact response you've given. How would you feel about
Which
that?
one?
About the relationship with her father, right? And she said, "Oh well, my dad and I don't talk much. I wish I could do better." How would you feel about that? I'm asking this because I think the goal of parenting, you know, something to think about. You don't have to even give a response.
No.
Yeah, and how we tend to lose ourselves in like pursuit. You know, mentally you can clock that family is all that there is, and my friends are all that I have. But you get lost in the pursuits.
Yeah. Honest answer, it would be a bit painful.
Yeah.
But the reality is that is possible.
Yeah.
Even if you nurture the right relationships, even if you keep a healthy relationship. I don't want to hold on to what 30 years from now can look like. I want to hold on to what today can look like.
Okay.
So today, I need to strengthen my relationships where I can, including with my mom or my dad or my siblings, or my daughter or my wife, etc. And I think that's all I can do for now, because sometimes you'll be amazed the traumas people go through that you just never know that you contributed to. I could do everything right by my daughter, and it might be it might turn out differently.
Yeah.
And I think in general, I'm comfortable with that notion. It might be painful, but they go through their own journeys as well. So you just have to do what you can today to nurture the right environment.
Okay. So talking about the future, I mean, you don't want to hold on to what the future looks like.
From a relationships perspective.
Relationships, yes, but on the business wise, with Arian, for example, what does that look like?
The main driver is to build, like you said earlier, conglomerates of companies.
Yeah.
But the goal is to pull in enough or a lot of revenue onto the continent and to use that to impact that widespread change that we're looking for in a mindset or in our institutions, to allow room for failure. There's a reason a lot of American organizations are thriving, but there's several more that are failing because there's a lot of capital flowing for that risk. We need infrastructure. We need a lot of different things on the continent, but we don't have too many people playing around with that kind of capital with an intentional purpose for the continent. And Ayyrian Group just wants to enter that conversation.
Okay. There's this conversation around the fact that people who build really deeply entrenched and impactful things don't exactly agree all the time, but I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Don't exactly agree on what?
What I'm about to share is that people who build long-lasting, impactful businesses tend to focus on just one business.
Yes.
So take Sam Walton or John D. Rockefeller or Carnegie or what's it called, Bill Gates. One business.
100%.
Yes, but then here you are building multiple businesses. What's your thought? What are your thoughts on that?
That's partly stupidity, and partly
stupidity on your part.
Yeah, absolutely. It is definitely conventional wisdom to focus on one business and grow it extensively before diversifying. And as a result of my learnings, we are trying to trim down growing so rapidly across different fronts, because it's not possible, or it's not easy to achieve success across them with a diverse, with a segregated focus. But again, we strive to build businesses in partnership. So that still puts someone at the forefront of a lot of things. Like Amma runs Anisys collectively entirely. I don't have any involvement with that on the day-to-day. Carl is the CEO of Bandwidth Global, stuff like that. So there's a lot of direction from other people that helps it make sense, but 100% it's unconventional to do it the way we're doing it. But nonetheless, we are here.
I guess that makes you an unconventional disruptor.
I guess so.
I've developed this habit of getting exclusive advice.
Okay.
From people who sit across me on this table,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to tell me.
Okay.
As a young entrepreneur who's trying to build business,
Mm-hmm.
what would you tell me? Like, if you could write, you could write a letter to your younger self.
Mm-hmm.
What would you tell me?
There are no adults in the room. Nobody has it all figured out. And where you are today, I don't know how old you are, but I got to a certain point and I realized that, look, where I am today, my parents were making decisions that were affecting my life, and they were my same age with the same stupid ideas sometimes. And so like, there's no adults. And I've been in a lot of meetings with much more older people. The conversations sometimes are the same, even more stupid. Be comfortable in that there's no adults and strive for what you want, but be graceful in taking advice from the people that care.
Thank you very much, Cyprian. Thank you very much, Ed.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cyprian.
Jesus.
Just kidding. The last question I ask, it's probably on spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
When I walked in
Mm-hmm.
and I was late,
Mm-hmm.
I told you that my car's engine needs the hand of God.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, the hand of God will not. If the hand of God were involved, I wouldn't be late.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it, like, anyway. Which is why when we sat down, the first question I asked you whether you were like a religious person, and I've also come to realize that there's a correlation between people who are building things. Anybody who sees themselves has some sort of correlation with the divine and God, and so your posture on that front, how does that look like?
What do I believe in? Or what does that look like?
Spirituality, God,
I think I'm spiritual heavily. I don't think I'm a conventional Christian. I do strongly believe God's vision, similar to what we're discussing about Nkrumah and stuff like that. When you have a broader picture, you're not looking at individual impact. I think God's vision for us is on a grand scale, for his greater good. So on a day-to-day, we have to show up, strive towards his greater good. I don't think God is focused on our lives individually for our own satisfaction. So my relationship with God is, what can I do to empower his vision? How can I be kinder? How can I be a little more patient, accepting of others, and in a variety of different, more traditional Christian ways. But my point is, even when I go to God on my knees for help, I am completely okay with, I am not important at all. I just have to keep striving my best and keep serving God. So it's never what can I get from God. It's not a two-way relationship. It's a focus purely on what can I give God.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much, Cyprian. Wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
Genuinely, all of grace in your endeavor to build solutions and then affecting the mindset of people on this continent.
Thank you.
I hope the dream when you're 60, you have a great relationship with your kids.
Mm.
You are setting up infrastructure that will make the people have a good time, and hopefully I'll be invited. I hope that even though there's conventional wisdom that you have to focus on one business and build it out, your dynamic will be completely different. And
Hopefully.
you truly call that an unconventional disruptor.
And if it's not different, I learn from it and I choose a different path.
So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
It's been
for
a great
having me.
conversation.
Likewise.
Right. So community and friends in Accra and the world beyond. It was a great conversation with Ed Cyprian, and I had a good time, and I hope you did too. You are.